There is that sense of just some basic first aid. Someone's had a heart attack. You don't need to be a doctor to save them. You just need to keep pushing and breathing to help the person move. And so what we want to do is over the journey is basically four things that will really make a difference. So the first thing is that having some kind of guide. You want someone who is a specialist relationship therapist, particularly if you're working to repair the relationship. There are things that individual people do in individual therapy that actually make couples worse, that can work well for individuals, but won't necessarily support the relationship. Also, when you're working with the relationship and someone's trained how to do that, you can use the existing connection that you have with your partner to provide support connection to deal with problems as they're occurring in the moment. And again, some training in that is really useful. And so there's some other resources on our site that will let you know about what does a specialist relationship look like, what kind of training will they have. And just to be aware that just because someone's a therapist does not mean that they're trained to work with couples. When baby therapists are learning, we start off with individuals because individuals are easier to work with than couples. Once you've trained, couples, I think, are easier to work with than individuals. Most couples don't want to be the first therapist to gamble their marriage on someone who's never worked with a client before. Second thing is, if they are specialist relationship therapists, ideally you want someone who has infidelity experience. If you have the option, you can go for that. That's a really great choice. If you don't have an option, if you're in a small town, if there's not someone who's available that you can do that, make sure that they're a specialist relationship therapist, but we have access to resources and training on our site that is available at very reasonable cost. If someone's going to work with you and you're gambling your marriage on them, get them to use the resources as well. We're not the only resources they have, but there are some that are really good. You want to feel safe with them. So some of you may think, wow, Steve is such a great guy. I'd love to work with him. And some people are like, oh, holy fuck, I don't want to work with men. If I can hate men, I want to work with a woman. In which case, I would not be the right therapist for you. So that sense where it is at a slightly visceral level, where you feel comfortable, where you feel safe enough, that's a really important factor for you to choose. You want someone that your partner also feels safe enough. That is not the same as comfortable. Okay, so if you're coming in and your infidelity therapy feels like super comfortable and relaxed the whole time, you're probably doing it slightly wrong. But safe enough to have hard conversations, safe enough to express yourself, safe enough to receive feedback, and fundamentally to feel like that they care about you. If we don't feel like someone cares about us, that we matter to someone, it's not safe, and it's hard for us to let down our walls and make therapy successful. The next thing you want is a confidant. Now, this is critically important. Therapy is not a replacement for that. Okay, you can't call your therapist at 11 o'clock at night when you're having a meltdown. A confidant is at least one person that you can basically tell all to. Okay, you want someone who's available, that will respect your confidences, that will respect your choices, and who will both respect that and can give you some feedback. Because remember, you're a little bit paranoid and you're going to need an external reference point. Okay, so if you decide that you should go and slash their tires, they can say, hey, I know you're mad. This is probably not a good life choice. But it makes sense that you feel really angry and that you want to lash out. Being able to hold that space is really important. One of the things that many people say, they often surprised, they tell their best friend and their friend's like, oh my God, and they get really overwhelmed. They don't know how to deal with it. And then there's this person they've met a few times and they notice that you seem really upset and you talk and then like, oh shit, like I've had that experience, or they're just a really good listener, and people can often be surprised. Just trust your instinct. Okay? Parents and in-laws can be problematic because they have a vested interest. It's pretty hard for them to be neutral. In terms of community, you need a variety of emotional, physical, and intellectual resources and escape. Communities typically don't know anything or everything. Sometimes it can be helpful to have a group that doesn't know a thing about you. You can go and arrive and do the thing that makes you feel better, and you don't have to talk to anything about all the shit that's going on at home. That can be a wonderful escape. They resource you in some way. You can go to yoga and it's just an opportunity to settle. It helps you stretch out your body. You go to the gym, you can put music on, lift your weights, feel better. They accept you, that it feels safe. I've mentioned some examples. Now, obviously, if as a guy, yoga probably not going to be the best support group for me. I'm much more likely to get support in the gym and vice versa. But find your... In phase one, you're probably not going out to find a new community. That community will pre-exist. But identifying those places or those spaces where you feel most comfortable in phase one is where you aim. So in terms of the content that we have, this is primarily the stuff that's focused on phase one. I've got a small amount of material on the phase two, just so you know where we're going. So particularly like with the why questions and those kind of thing, we're not covering it in some detail, but just so that you know the map, that you know that there is a process going forward.